What else in the survey stood out? I mean, you've mentioned a couple of the things. The fact that people are spending more than they thought.
Right.
That's got to be a pretty good sign for the economy, I guess, all things considered.
One would think, and it reminds me, Tyler, I've been doing this now for a long enough time to know, and for some reason I cannot escape the actual mental process we all go through. Start off optimistic. Somewhere in the middle, we all get pessimistic. Then this late holiday surge that we picked up in our survey is perfectly normal for the pattern of Christmas shopping. And it happens, and for some reason, it's like a Groundhog Day phenomenon where we can't avoid going through the different mental states of the holiday season. That struck me. Now, a couple more serious issues we haven't had a chance to talk about, which is, again, huge differences in spending among income groups. 2-3 times more being spent at the upper levels than the lower levels. People married with kids spend a whole lot more than people married without kids. That sort of goes without saying, but tremendous geographic and demographic differences among people, and especially when it comes to income groups.
What about men versus women? You mentioned earlier that men seem a little more inclined to spend more on that average. The average,
they spend more. They're less averse when it comes to doing it. Women seem to, and older people as well, seem to count their pennies a little bit more. Whereas men are, I think it's the phenomenon you talked about. I guess I just make it personal. I don't like the process. When I'm doing it, I just want to get it done, and I'm not sensitive to price. I think retailers probably count on that, and we probably should check this out. I would guess the discounting on things that men buy, I mean, putting the TV and electronics to the side, when it comes to things that men buy, it's probably a little bit less than it is for things that women buy.
I call it commando shopping. Right. I go in, hit and run.
Hit and run. And one other item which was out there which was interesting was debt. We found that fewer Americans than we thought. Half said they would take on the same debt as last year, and only 7% said more debt than last year.
Yeah, but I'll bet you when all is said and done, like that number, when all is said and done, they will end up with more debt than they thought they were going to take, and more than they had at a comparable time last year. Back to the men versus women thing, I bet another explanation could be that men typically have higher incomes than women, number one. And you said young versus old. Older people tend to have more fixed incomes and maybe restrain themselves at the holiday season a little more than other groups of the population.
I also wonder about keeping up with the Joneses, if that's more of a male thing than a female thing.
That's an interesting point.
I think retirees may be at a point where they don't much care if he has that and young versus old, whereas young people, especially men, are more inclined to want to have something that somebody else has or something better.
I got to have the flat screen. My family room won't be as good as Charlie's family room as we get high into the football season. Let's talk a little bit as we wrap up here about the Philly Fed number that came out about an hour ago and really did seem to take the wind out of the markets. The markets were not really doing all that well today anyway, but that certainly accelerated whatever decline was there.
Yeah, it was an interesting number to report because the economists got the number right. They were just on the wrong side of the zero line. They forecast a gain of 4. It was -4, which is a pretty big difference. It was a shockingly weak number. Why do we pay so much attention to Philly? Well, first of all, it's not just Philadelphia. It's the Mid-Atlantic region that we're measuring manufacturing in. That's the first thing. Second of all, this survey has done a very good job of forecasting weakness or strength on the national level. 3 out of 4, the past 4 months, this number has been negative, suggesting contraction in manufacturing in the region. You remember, as this number went negative, then the ISM, the National Manufacturing Survey, also fell below 50, suggesting contraction in the national manufacturing sector, while the other regional surveys were not doing quite as good a job of pointing to that weakness. So the real concern here, Tyler, is that we had some weakness in November. It looks like it continued into December and may, in fact, have deepened.
And third quarter GDP estimate, was that what it is? A little weaker than
expected. I looked at the details of that. It was nothing that alarmed me. We knew it was sort of a 2-ish kind of number, and 2-ish is about what we got. It would have been at 2.2. We'd expected it to be at 2.1. It came in at 2.2. I didn't see anything. They took off 1/10 from the consumer. I would have been concerned if they took off a lot more from the consumer in the third quarter. And really, getting back to where we started, we're waiting to see the results of what happened in the Christmas shopping and the holiday shopping season. That's going to go a long way to determining what the fourth quarter number is. It still looks like we're on track for a 2-ish. This idea from the Federal Reserve of moderate growth still seems to be the best forecast. Every day I come in and Larry Kudlow says to me, "Steve, how's Goldilocks?" As I'm the personal caretaker of the Goldilocks forecast out there. And every day when the data come in, I say, well, how does this sort of back up or contradict the idea? Today's Philly Fed say, well, maybe Goldilocks, it's a little less likely now, but not too much. I still think with the consumer, if the consumer can come in, keep that spending up to that 2.5% to 3% level, I think we'll still be okay and still have moderate growth.
What was it the day before? Was it the day before yesterday or yesterday the producer price number was higher than anticipated?
Right.
Was that anomalous?
I think that was an anomaly for a couple of reasons. You had the light truck numbers coming in at 13.7%. You get tremendous price variation around this time of year. The automakers introduced the new models, and they do it different weeks of the year. And so there's a seasonal adjustment where they expect a price rise, but if the price rise is over what the data expect or what the data collectors expect, it tends to be higher or lower than that. So really it was an anomaly, it looked like, from that. Toys were up 1.1%. I'm really doubtful or skeptical that toy price inflation is something that's out there to be worried about. The other thing is that that's at the wholesale level. A couple days earlier, we'd gotten the consumer price index, which suggested that consumer was relatively tame. At the consumer level, bottom line, that's what the Fed really cares about. It'll watch warily what they call pipeline pressure at the wholesale level, but it won't act on it. It's only going to act when it sees what's happening at the pipeline or at the wholesale level, filtering down on a one-for-one basis down to the consumer level. It's not been happening.
Steve, thanks.
My pleasure.
Great to be with you. It's our senior economics correspondent, Steve Liesman, and you can find out everything you ever wanted to know about the CNBC Holiday Central Retail Survey on CNBC.com. You want to know who's spending what and where? Look there. We'll be back in about 10 minutes with more on CNBC.com. I'll be speaking with our pharmaceuticals reporter, Mike Huckman, about news from the world of stents that is moving some stocks today. I'm Tyler Mathisen. Thanks so much.